Okay, I'd like to call this special meeting to order at 4:04 p.m. This is a meeting to evaluate our future financial arrangements. And we want to make sure that the public is involved as well. So this is one of our first meetings to do this. And the chief will take over now.
Okay, so we should be joined by Commissioner Katz here momentarily. He's attempting to get online, and hopefully he'll be able to join us. At this point, we've accepted the capital facilities plan. It is now posted in the news flash area on the website. So that was just completed prior to this meeting. A copy of that was sent to Pat Grubb, and the commissioner's last meeting approved that plan. So we can move forwards now with understanding the financial needs of the district, our current levy not providing for those needs, and that incorporates into emergency response and all the non-emergency things we do as well. But so now it comes down to talking about the potential levy and or bond issue at play. So what would you guys like to start off with, levy or bond?
I prefer levy.
Levy?
What does the bond determine what levy we use?
No, they're totally two separate things. So two separate things. Levy is different than a bond. Okay, so, but a levy, yeah, a bond is the big ticket items. But again, the current levy that we have, unless we went out for a levy lift and a bond, our issue would be, we could do that in November, go for a levy lid lift, permanent, and also a bond issue. But if the levy does not pass, but the bond issue does, then our current levy does not support the improvements potentially of that bond. So a bond issue of approximately probably 4 million is what it would take to capitalize all of our needs within this district and to get those accomplished. That includes purchasing 2 new engines, an ambulance, utility, staff cars, repaving the parking lots, doing the roof, and other items that are within our capital facilities plan. Mm-hmm. So a bond would be paid back over 20 years, as Nelson from Davidson and Company from out of Seattle stated one of the initial meetings. It could be a 20-year bond, but again, our current levy has to be able to sustain the improvements of that bond, and at this point, it would not. So then we go back to a levy, and I'll put up projections of what a how much a levy would cost. I guess I'll share that now. Sorry, just give me 1 second, please. They were up. So these would be the projections of a potential levy measure. So to explain this again, I explained this, I'll be going over this multiple times at the meetings, just so the public has an understanding of it. A $500,000 value, our current levy is the 693. That comes out to, it's actually 693, that's our current levy. So the way that's rounded up, the 3458, I'll just let you know that. The ones below that, and because of the Excel program that we're using, it rounds that up for some reason, and I can't stop it to rounding up. But the ones below that are the same levy, but with increases to the right. So it's actually an 893,457.05 or let me take a look. I don't want to misspeak here. So give me 1 second to take a look at that, and I'll tell you exactly the calculation, and that came from the county. So the exact calculation that we're working with is so if you go through the second line to the 89 cents, so the 500,000, it's actually calculated at 0.893457,057 per thousand. So again, the above line just rounded up to the 58. For some reason, it's doing that on the front line of this, and I can't figure it out. Not the best, but these are approximations. Obviously, the final will be determined by the county. So just know that. And so, are you guys still seeing? You guys are seeing my now up here, so you can see that for that perspective. And I'm going to go back, otherwise I'm going to mess up that sheet. Okay, so we'll use this sheet instead of the PDF, but I can post the PDF. It'll be part of this meeting, obviously. So if you see the current, what somebody's paying with the 69-cent levy for a $500,000 home, it's $346.73. If we increase that 20, 30, 40, 45, and 50, you can see how that adjusts and how much more a year that is potentially to someone who owns a $500,000 home. That goes to 750,000 and then $1 million. Now 750,000 had some wonkiness at the $1.14 levy, so that would be a 45-cent levy. I did it multiple times. I kept coming up with 857.59, which I even asked my wife, a CPA, about that, and she calculated it out. And for whatever reason, it's just a wonky number there. And if anybody can figure that out, that'd be great. But again, these are approximations, so please understand that these are not hard and fast. And I am not an accountant, nor do I work for the county's a department that does this. So if you go up to $1 million value, a 50-cent levy would add approximately $500 a year to currently what they're paying at $693.46 to the district. So what would that bring into the district? So underlining this is our current valuation in the districts is $935,096,921. And that was our prior valuation was $700 and some thousand. Or 740 some million dollars. Well, our new valuation, I believe, went into place the last year in 2022. I think that valuation went in. Everybody saw their property taxes jump. So right now, that's what we're taking this off of, and the projections for a potential levy measure would be as such. Now, far to the right, you'll see what it potentially could bring into the district. So all the way to the right, you have a 20, 30, 40, 45, and 50-cent levy. From the projected taxable levy, so currently we're at 648,000. If I got a 20-cent levy, we would projectedly go to 835,000, 30-cent, 928,000. And then at 40 cents, we start jumping to over $1 million. But our current levy is 648,000, and the difference between those, you can see to the right-hand side. A 40-cent levy would bring in approximately 374,000. 45-cent levy would be 420, and a 50-cent levy would be 467,000. Do you want to mute it?
I'm muting.
Chief, can I ask if those increases on the far right, those are just the new income that would be created?
The far right is the new income that would be created.
Just the new income. Yeah, that's what it looks like, obviously, but I just had to confirm. Thank you.
Yeah, so the column that's by the projected taxable levy, that's what our operational or our income would be potentially. So, and then I put the difference. So what it would bring in on a yearly basis to the district to the far right. Again, these are projections. Nothing's hard and fast right now. So with that, if we took a levy measure, right now the bond issues went up in percentage rate hike as well with the newly quarter rate hike from the feds. So from the last time we actually talked to Davidson and Company, after that meeting, we had a rate hike in that. So that would change a bond issue percentage rate. for 20 years. Now, I don't know if you can refinance a bond. So let's say we took out a bond and it's 5.5, let's say the percentages. These are just raw numbers. I'm not saying these are the specific numbers, but raw numbers, let's say it's 5.5. If over the next 5 years it dropped down into 2 or 3, would we be able to refinance for our bond measure for the public? I don't have that answer. I would have to go through Brian Snur and talk to Davison and Company, Nelson, to ascertain an answer to that question. And that's something I'll do before our next meeting. Our next special meeting is on the 22nd this month. So we'll be having another meeting and I'll have those answers by then. And I may be inviting back Davison and Company and also our legal counsel, Brian Snur, if that's in agreement with the commissioners, either to our next meeting or one of the meetings in July. So I'll just announce that it looks like everybody except Patty can make July 6th. So July 6th would be another special meeting. Patty would not be participating in the July 12th meeting, but July 6th and July 12th would be the next special meetings. And those have been confirmed that everybody's available for those. Commissioner Lester, Harper, Katz, and Linda. So July 6th and 12th would be our special meetings before the main meeting, July 14th, next month. Again, our next one would be the 22nd of this month. So in 5 days. Oh, sorry, I'm speaking, sorry, I said July, didn't I? I apologize. It's June, sorry, I was speaking in July. I'm a month ahead, I'm getting old. So June 6th, June 12th, and then our regular meeting is June 14th. But the meetings this month is today, and it would be May 22nd. We're in May. Right. Holy smokes. Okay, sorry for that confusion.
So is that confirmed? Our next special meeting is Monday, May 22nd? That
is correct.
Thank you.
And it'll be at 4 o'clock, regular scheduled time. So that is, if we go back to a bond, so that's a question that I need to ask. Bond percentage, if it can be restructured, if the bond percentages go down, or if we take a private loan to pay off the bond and then we work that private loan or financing some other way. But that complicates things because if the district took out, then the district would have to pay for that out of our revenue because it wouldn't come off of property taxes at that point. So I will find out if there's any way to decrease a bond percentage once it's set for a term limit.
Seems like you'd have to go out and do another totally redo them.
Yeah, another bond, but that would have to be approved again by the public.
Right.
A non-voted bond, again, would have to be handled from the revenue within the district.
Yeah.
And we've decided that that's, I believe, is not an issue. Yeah, it's a
non-starter.
reachable issue for us. Okay, so a bond issue, again, that's great because it's immediate return in visual value for the community. They see us buying new trucks. They see us buying new equipment, providing capital facility needs, right? And then again, as it would be structured at this point, that the public would pay that out over 20 years. And I think it was $178 was the cost that we are looking at. So let's just say $200 in a bond issue over 20 years. So that would be $4,000 for an average house. Now, again, that's not hard and fast. I think I remember those numbers off the report that Davison and Company had for a projected maybe $4.5 million bond. The problem with that is our current levy would not support the improvements. So if something happens, obviously things would be under warranty for a period of time, but after that, our levy would not be in place to support probably the improvements that we put in place. So let me just let the public know that right now we can take 1% a year. That is by law. We can increase our revenue by 1% a year by law. And that only really provides us around $6,000 a year. Last year or the year before, we had a stipulation. There was a different calculation for some reason, and we only got half of that. So $6,000 a year, that is squeaking by, and potentially now with inflation and how much our gear and everything else has gone up, not even being able to outfit one firefighter with full structural gear, SCBA, those types of things. So we need to decide whether at this meeting or next meeting, if we're going to go for both. Again, the danger of going for a levy and a bond on the same ballot is one passes, the other one does not. If we go for a reduced levy on the ballot for a higher bond, and the bond does not pass, but the levy passes, then we projectly do not still have enough to complete our capital facility projects that are necessary. So that is a complication. Going for a higher bond, if we went for a 45 or a 50-cent bond, our projections would hopefully be that we would not have to go out for a bond within the next decade, let's say, and potentially, put off some of the capital facilities, 2 or 3 years, while we are increasing our reserves in order to fulfill those capital facility needs. Now, the idea of which ones would be pushed off, right? And everything's going in more expensive, right? Every year, a truck is increasing in cost. So we could be looking at another 8 to 15% cost. The more we push out our fire trucks, the more we push out our ambulances, the more we push out materials for the parking lot, those types of things. But is it doable with a higher levy? And then not, our hope and our desire would be that a bond issue may not be needed, and we could do it underneath a levy lift.
And if we did need it, we could do a bond at a later date.
If it was needed, we could do a bond at a later date. And then projectedly, that bond would be a reduced bond versus what we would need currently would be a $4 million bond to satisfy our needs at this point. So let's say over the next 5 to 7 years, if we went for a higher levy, let's say we went for a 50-cent levy. So we have 467,000 projected to come into the district more a year. Now, obviously, that's going to go up by around $8,000 to $10,000 a year with the 1%. So we'd be adding more, every year into that reserve capacity with the 1% that we could take. But I would say that at least $350,000 of that would need to $300,000 to $350,000 would have to go into reserves directly. And that would leave us approximately $120,000 to put back into our operational budget to fulfill things that we're not able to do currently for the community and for the district and the members. So that is a possibility. We also have to look at, I believe our last numbers were just over 1 million in our reserve capacity currently. One fire truck takes almost three quarters of that. If we're looking at fire trucks that will last us, 30 years and not 15, and then have to go back out and buy another truck in 15 years, or something that's going to be breaking down on us. All those trucks are out there, but we currently purchased trucks that have lasted us 30 years. So I don't think we should change that mindset, purchasing quality equipment when we're capable of doing such. So if we did that, we would have to look at that 120,000 projected that we would be putting back into operational expenses. The time is coming where I'll have to be putting on part-time people, most likely within the next 3 to 5 years, potentially, because I'll be losing my older responders. My oldest responder, I believe, is 77 years old. The next up is 74 years old. Again, I don't know how old our advanced EMT from the community is, but I project that I'd be very glad if they could make their 80s as responders. But I think that's asking a lot. We're going to have to fill that void with potentially, most likely, somebody that is part-time. and projectedly looking at a cost per part-timer of $30,000. And again, that's a number that can change, that can go up, that can go down. But classifying somebody as part-time paid, that's a conversation I can bring in next meeting if you all wish to have that knowledge. But they aren't able to work, 100 hours a month. It would be less than that. So it would have to be really watched. And then if I have somebody from the community that's part-time that wants that position and, interviews for that position, are they able to be part-time paid and also a volunteer at the same time for this district? That is the big question. I would have to check into that, and that's something else I would have to take to our legal counsel. So we have to go for a levy if that's what's chosen, or we have to go for a bond and or both, depending on what the conversations become in the next 3 meetings. And if more meetings are needed, if we still haven't made a choice by the 14th, then we'll continue in June. And I don't want to rush, this process either, but I want everybody to have a full understanding of why the need is there for either a bond levy combination, or a levy to continue servicing this community at the current level and providing further services in the future.
So can we look at the levy?
Sure. So if the other commissioners would like to talk more about the levy, I'm open to answer questions regarding the potential increases. And I think I have a pretty good spread of the $500,000 home, $750,000 home, and $1 million home. So if your home is over $1 million, then you're looking at 500 plus. If we went for a 50-cent levy, you'd be looking at less than 500 if we went for any other levy. Again, those are projected numbers. Please don't hold me to those hard and fast. I'm not a mathematician, and I'm doing my best on projecting those. I'm having people double check them. So we're close, but the final number would not be in place until this was voted in by the taxpayers, and then the county would do the final calculations.
There are different levies.
Right. And we would have to go for a permanent levy. So this would be a permanent levy lid lift,
Okay.
meaning that it would go on for sunset, right? And we wouldn't have to come back to the voters. We would just continue working off this as we are currently on the levy that was put in 2010. That levy has supported us up to this point, and we haven't had to go back to the voters to have them renew that levy or anything like that. So it would be the same. It would be a permanent lift, and that would allow us to projectily go off of whatever cents that the commissioners would choose. Now, again, as was explained by our legal counsel on, I believe, 2 meetings ago, our legal counsel explained, he sent out a document as well that I can publish to the community. But he explained that at some point, inflation has the potential of overcoming a new levy as well. But we would hope that would be, again, another, 12, 13, 15 years, down the road, that another levy lift would need to be looked at. Now, things could change. There was something that was in front of the state lawmakers, and it would allow us to go up to, I am sorry, I forget the term, a factor lift or something. I'm sorry. It would allow us to take up to 3% per year, and versus our 1%. It would allow us, well, right now, if it would have been approved, it would allow special taxing districts to go up to 3% a year versus 1%. And that would have changed things for us as well, right? That would have benefited us because we could have taken a 3%, which would have given us basically, if we get that full 1%, which is never a full 1%, it's like a 0.98, right? But it, from $6,000, let's say if we were getting the full 1%, it would have given us $18,000 a year in increase. But that was voted down by the lawmakers in Washington. So that was not passed. And that just happened within the last weeks, months. So that didn't help us. I was hoping that we could potentially get some help from that, but they didn't. So it'll be a discussion on if you want to stay with the levy and potentially hope that a levy lid lift would potentially take us out of the need of having to go for a bond at some point in the future, or at least decreasing that bond significantly if we had to in the next 5 to 7 years to overcome capital facility needs that have not been able to be fulfilled by the reserve capacity we were able to build with an increased levy. So that's a potential. My desire would be that if we took a higher levy, that levy would sustain us and help us overcome and accomplish the capital facility needs. But again, the public would have to be patient because those would have to be extended out. I would have to say potentially 2 to 3 years per capital facility, need. I would have to say we'd probably have to add 2 to 3 years onto each one. The smaller stuff we could get done, right? But we can't use the entire 1 million that we have in reserve capacity either. We need to, prudency and responsibility, in my mind, and the commissioners control this, is to sustain a minimum of 6 months, if not 8 months of a reserve capacity for absolute emergencies within our reserves that we currently have. So let's say we average, $50,000 a month that we're averaging, then our minimum would be 300,000 that we would need to maintain. We could deplete our reserves to fulfill capital facility needs to that point. I think 300,000 is pretty, in my mind, that's low. I would rather stay to 400,000 to 500,000 because if we have a financial crisis or something really bad happens and we need to have replacements, whatever be the case, $300,000 barely buys us an ambulance, to put it in perspective. Yeah. And, we have insurance, right? But as everybody knows, when you use insurance, it goes up next year. You pay more for the insurance. And we felt that this last couple of years when we had to replace some vehicles. One vehicle was wrecked and we had to replace that vehicle, and the cost of our insurance to cover the district went up. So, but we have very good insurance that protects our volunteers to and from. It protects their vehicles here when they're here in case their vehicles get broken into. And I think that's, and obviously the building, all the apparatus, and then the dispersables that we have within this agency are all protected, right, for replacement. So we may not want to use insurance, if we have another vehicle replacement because it gets damaged at our fault, and maybe we don't want to use that. We need the reserve capacity to fulfill that replacement, and that's an option we have at this point. So we don't have that jump, right, in cost to our base insurance. So I think that's those are all considerations. Yeah. So a bond issue again, I don't know what the rate is, but it went up since our last meeting, and what the current bond was, the percentage rate for the bond that Davison and Company, Nelson, projected to us. And obviously that's changing probably on a daily basis. It's up and down. I don't know how it fluctuates, but he's the subject matter expert on that. And he would be able to answer those questions if we would like to invite him back.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea to invite back our legal counsel and also Davison and Company to just review for everybody, for us and the public, what the projections would be and how levies work, and review that again at a meeting coming up, whether it's we have another 22nd meeting and we decide which way to go at that meeting, or we reserve that we still don't know if we're going out for a bond, a dual bond levy or a levy. And then on the June 6th meeting, invite back Davidson and Company and also Brian Snur. And then on the special meeting on the 12th, potentially make some directional decisions on levy and or bond, and then picking the amounts, whichever one is chosen by the commission.
You have questions?
No, not really. Yeah. Um, Instead of the levy.
If we go for a levy and not the bond, it'll take us more time to fulfill our capital facility needs. That's the hope, right? That I don't like saying hope, because we can't run emergency services off of hope. But our goal would be that a formidable levy increase. So if we went to a 45 or a 50-cent levy increase, that we could, by saving, the majority of that off the top, projectedly, it would take us. So if we went for a $467,000 increase, which is a 50-cent levy, that would get us to a revenue of 1.1 million. If we put away 300,000, let's say we put 300,000 away of that, just automatically every single year on top of the reserve capacity we have now. So let's say the commissioners choose to use $600,000 of the million reserve capacity we have now. That would give us a $900,000 reserve capacity to start our capital facility needs at that point, the first year, basically. Again, maintaining that $400,000 to $500,000 reserve, I think, is very important and prudent. But that is the choice of the commission, whether how far we take down our reserves. I would highly discuss not going below 6 months, if not 8, as the lowest. But we have some movement, so we've done a good job since the levy was put into place. We've been able to increase our reserve capacity pretty substantially since 2010. And we've been prudent with expenses as well. But now it's getting to the point that we have a lot of things coming up. Yeah. So putting $300,000 away out of any potential levy increase, and then planning for that $30,000, part-time paid position, potentially having 2 of those positions. So now out of that remainder, $100,000 or $120,000, you've already taken $60,000 of that. So now it's reduced what I have in my operational $60,000, right? And again, I provide uniforms, but I'm not able to provide everything right now. My volunteers come here and, they pay hundreds, if not thousands, over the time that they're here on buying their own clothes and protective gear and boots and things like that, because I can't afford to supply everybody at this point. I would like to be able to do that, and I believe our volunteers give enough to where that's warranted as well.
Yeah.
But that's another discussion. So it's a gamble either way. If we go out for a levy and bond on the same ballot, the bond passes, but the levy doesn't. So now we have all this money to spend, but we have no way to support it, because I had $11,000 last year, I believe Patty stated last meeting, that went in my reserve capacity.
That's not nearly.
And that doesn't even, technically, I don't even know if that would put tires on my largest engine to replace 8 tires. It would be very close. Right? So when we're squeaking that close on what we have going into reserve capacity or fulfilling spending down to the last penny, the operational budget that is approved every November to provide services to our external and internal customers, and to support the longevity of this building and all the apparatus that we have. I think that's becoming pretty scary. That's an issue to me. The last thing I would want to do is start going negative, right? And have a big, huge bond and go negative in our operational budget to support the bond. Yeah. So we go for a bonds, we go for a $3.5 million and we go for a 30-cent levy increase. So we affirm that we're able to support the upgrades the bond would provide us and support,
And we're assuming
The bond
that they would
improvements.
both pass.
assuming they would both pass. But if the bond passes and the levy doesn't, that's a big problem. Because we don't have the capacity to support the improvements of a bond at this point. And again, some of those would be warrantied out for a couple of years, but after the warranty's gone, in a couple of years, we're only going to have $12,000 more in our operational fund underneath our current levy, if I got a full 1%.
And you're buying trucks that are not necessarily new.
Well, yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be buying anything used, because it would be a new truck to last us 30 years. It would be a new truck. Yeah, I'm not going to buy a 5, 6, 8-year-old truck that has problems and there's an issue why somebody's getting rid of it, right? There are some times that you can catch something like that on the market because of missed payments. You know, the organization that purchased it was unable to, and they defaulted on it, and everything's fine with the truck. But that is extremely rare.
And the thing about the capital improvements that,
Speak up for me, please.
the things dealing with the capital improvement, and timeline in which we kind of do things.
I believe capital, if we went for a bond would have to be fully used in 3 years. I believe we have 3 years. Now, again, that's off my memory, but I believe it's 3 years. I could be plus or minus. So please don't hold me to that, but I think it's 3 years.
Things can happen that we don't control as far as nature and all that kind of stuff. And then the impact.
Well, it could impact our facilities. I mean, because we're going to have to start doing some improvements on our facilities. One of the biggest things is our concrete bay floors. Those are going to have to be fixed. And because right now we have huge cracks that are developing. We have water getting underneath our trucks. We don't have any drainage. So put it this way, all brand new fire stations are built with some type of drainage underneath their trucks. We don't have that here. So all of the water from winter, right, or from our leaking pumps, because pumps do drip. That's just something pumps do. They drip and we have nowhere for that water to go other than down the cracks and in the separations that we currently have. If everybody remembers, for a number of years, we tried to correct the flooring in the ambulance bay.
Yeah.
And the contractor that did that came up and failed and came up again and failed. And it never was completed to where it should have been. So the ambulance bay has issues, but the big issue with the concrete and a 60,000-pound rig is in the fire bay, in the fire truck bay, where we have cracking at the door seam itself, and we've lost concrete already there. You know, the other thing is the parking lot. And I think if people come by, they can look at the parking lot, and most would say, oh, this doesn't look too bad, but it's sinking in areas. So that's a big issue. It's sinking at the end of our apparatus pullout area, and that's becoming a bigger bump as the days progress, and that has to be fixed.
All you have to do is drive across it.
Well, and you can drive across it, and if you drive at an angle, you're going to feel like you're on a roller coaster ride when you drive across it. But you know, this year in my capital facilities plan, the public will see that I had a $30,000 cost to reseal again the parking lot, to reseal it, to restripe it again, and to do that all over again. And that's something we'll have to decide if that's going to be worth it, or if we're going to wait and extend that out to see if we can get bond or levy, right, in November, that would allow us to replace the entire parking lot and actually put a proper base underneath it. Because I use the term alligatoring, but the separation in the asphalt that's currently out there, that's because there's not a proper base underneath, and that's what I've been educated on. So
You know, the failure to get this thing done right, is that performance or a failure in design?
I have no idea. It may be both. I wasn't part of this agency when that happened. And I don't even know when that parking lot was. I can do the research and find out when that parking lot was put in or redone, right? But the contractor is not going to be responsible for it anymore. I mean, it's 10, I'd say it's probably 10, 20 years that it's, past. I would probably say 20 plus. Because I don't think it was done after 2000. So we're 23 years into 2000. So I would have to say it was probably done in the 1990s or 80s when this was built. Maybe it was done, the last time we did anything with the parking lot was.
It had some resurfacing or something.
Yeah, we resealed and resurfaced it a couple years ago, if everybody remembers, like in 2015, 16, 14, somewhere in there. And it was beautiful, right? Because it was all black again. It was a beautiful looking parking lot. But that's like using makeup.
Yeah.
It's covering up the problems, not fixing the problems. So we have to be able to do something about the issues that we're seeing, because
Was the county overseas construction?
oh no, county has nothing to do with us. No, that would be a private contractor that would go out for bid, and whoever would win the bid would get the work on the parking lot. The inspection can just be done because that's within our purview to bring up and have somebody inspect it, right? And we could just pay straight out for that. That's within our cost range, right? But the project itself would have to go out for bid because it's going to be a $300,000 plus project. Yeah, and then whoever won it would come up and they would do the work at that point. We would hope that they could potentially reuse, right, for environmental purposes. Obviously, we want to try to be, to light on that, and maybe they could reuse some of the material that's currently here or reground it, something like that to reduce costs. But the base is what is going to need to be substantiated. Yeah.
So, Norm, do you have any questions?
No. Oh, wait, yeah. Chief, which do you consider better, a bond or a levy?
Well, both have pluses. And again, a bond is immediate gratification to the public because we start doing projects immediately. We start purchasing things, we start fixing things immediately.
Yeah.
The problem with a bond is a bond needs to be supported by your current taxation. And with the bond issue that we would need to take out, we would not be able to support any issues outside of warranty issues of any improvements within that bond measure. So if you're asking for, are you asking for my opinion?
Say that again?
Are you asking for my opinion?
Yeah, just your opinion. Yeah.
Okay. I would say a levy would be more prudent at this time. And then potentially if we were unable to fulfill our capital facility needs to the majority of our projects, or the major projects at least within the next 5 to 7 years, I would say that we would go out or need to discuss a reduced bond issue at that point. And see if that would be something we could move forth with that would be able to be supported by a levy lid lift at this point. So you're in very dangerous grounds if your levy cannot support their bond. And yes, the taxpayers are paying for the bond, but I'm talking about the improvements that are completed with the bond. You still have problems with all those improvements, right? You still have roof issues, you still have parking lot issues, you still have apparatus issues. And our current levy does not provide us that ability. So I would, if you're asking for my opinion and the direction we should take, I am more apt to be positive towards a levy versus a bond at this point, within the discussions that we're currently having.
Okay. I agree.
Yeah, and this is
I
where,
read-
you
I
know,
read a lot of this, and it just seems logical.
and again, our capital facilities plan just got published online. If you go to our website at wcfd5.com, you go over to the right-hand side, there's a news flash area. You click on that and it takes you to all of our heavy documents and the state audit document and those types of things. And then our updated capital facilities plan is on that for the public at this point. And that was just published. I got word prior to the meeting, so I apologize for the delay on that. So if I think that the commissioners have to make the choice of whether the measure on the ballot, if any measure is placed, if the measure is either going to be a levy or a bond, and that's a direction that the commissioners have to take, or a levy and bond. But again, there's high risk with doing both on a ballot, because if one fails and the other one doesn't, if the levy fails and the bond passes, we're upside down financially at that point, being able to support the improvements of such bond. And if we go for a bond and a reduced levy, then the levy passes, but the bond doesn't. But now we don't have a levy that provides us the flexibility to overcome our capital facilities without a bond.
And we have to also decide the level that we want to approach.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at this point, I think it's important just to, if you guys want to choose whether you're going to go for a levy or a bond or both, and make that choice. And then at the next meeting, we can start discussing the level of either a bond or a levy, or a combination of the two.
Well, I'll open it up to our two gentlemen to have a chance at it.
Norman, so I guess the question is to you, whether you would like to concentrate on a levy, bond, or a combination of the two.
I'm not sure yet. I need a little more time.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. We can do that.
Yeah, we have enough meetings left, and I can get together with you one-on-one and talk through it and answer any questions that you may have as well. I think again, maybe next meeting I should invite back on the 22nd. Maybe I invite back Nelson and Brian Snur, so you can have that information renewed, okay, in the conversation. And then maybe at that meeting, we'll have enough information to choose our route at that point.
And we need to look at how much to.
Right. Commissioner Katz, are you in agreement to that
Yes, definitely.
process? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be good for all of us, including the public, to have all that information renewed, revisited within the bond and the levy by the subject matter experts, our legal counsel, and also Davidson Company. So I'll reach out to both of them, see if they're available for the 22nd. The bad thing would be is if one's not and another one is, but at least we could get one of them on the meeting, and then projectly the next one on the next meeting if a decision couldn't be chosen on the direction that we're going to take.
Once a week.
A week. Hopefully Brian and or I believe it's Tim Nelson would be available for outside of a week.
So shall we consider adjourning for the day? We want to.
Yeah, unless somebody has questions regarding the projections that I put up, I can put those projections back up if you would like me to. Otherwise, they'll be part of this meeting. I plan on getting these meetings posted as quickly as possible for the public's review as well. So last meeting is, and this meeting I'll be taking down on Friday to our website manager, and they'll be working those videos and placing them hopefully by the end of the weekend before our next meeting. So this meeting and last meeting will be posted for the community to be able to have access to.
Yeah.
So I guess we can
Can we adjourn?
take,
I know, I'll second that. We'll adjourn at 55.